Helen of Sparta was the daughter of the king of Sparta. Yes, that's Sparta. But about 1,000 years before the Persian War. She was unquestionably the most beautiful woman in the world, probably because she was really the daughter of Zeus. But this led to problems. When it came time for her to marry, her father, her mortal one, was really worried. For one thing, she had already been involved in an attempted kidnapping by the king of Athens, Theseus. So when dozens of kings showed up for her hand, Helen's father was worried that whomever she picked would just be killed by the suitors, and he kind of wanted to avoid an endless bloodbath like that. Luckily, the clever Odysseus was there trying to win the hand of Helen's cousin, Penelope. And for a good word in with Penelope's father, Odysseus had a plan to solve this problem. Every man who wanted Helen's hand in marriage would have to swear an oath that he would kill any man who got between Helen and her chosen husband. With the oath in place, Helen chose Menelaus of Mycenae, whose brother, Agamemnon, king of Mycenae, went on to marry Helen's sister, Clytemnestra. And so, Helen was happily married for a few years. Menelaus became king of Sparta. They had a couple of kids. And then there comes this ship from Troy. Paris had gotten back into the good graces of his father, King Priam, because everyone seemed to have forgotten the whole Paris will destroy Troy prophecy. Nevertheless, Paris talked his way into being sent on a diplomatic mission to Sparta. But what he was really after was Helen. And with Aphrodite on his side, all he had to do was show up, and Helen fell instantly in love with him. So, leaving behind husband and children, Helen jumped on a boat with Paris and sailed from Sparta to Troy. And she was no longer Helen of Sparta. She was now Helen of Troy. Now you would think that Menelaus would just be depressed, but deal with it. Every other Greek for the next 1,000 years was more than willing to think of Paris as the greatest coward ever to live, and that Helen was the greatest slut of the Western world. No, really, ancient Greeks reviled Helen probably more than any other figure in all literature. But nonetheless, Menelaus wanted his wife back. So he called up all of Helen's old suitors to live up to their oath and go and kill Paris. Most of them didn't want to go, but Menelaus' brother Agamemnon did. Why did Agamemnon want to go? Because he knew Troy was one of the richest cities in the world, and to plunder it would make him wealthy beyond his wildest dreams. The problem is that Agamemnon should have considered that the gods were already looking for a way to punish him. What should he be punished over? Something his father did, actually. Agamemnon and Menelaus were known as the Atridae because their father was a man named Atreus. Atreus had been in a fight with his brother Thyestes over the throne of the kingdom of Mycenae. Atreus convinced his brother to come to dinner, and as they talked over, were served a splendid banquet. At the end of the meal, Atreus asked his brother if he had enjoyed the meal. Thyestes said he had, and Atreus produced a platter with the head and hands of Thyestes' son, who had been the main course at the dinner. Shocked and disgusted, Thyestes left Mycenae. However, the feast so horrified the gods that they placed a curse on the house of Atreus. Menelaus' end of the curse was Helen, but he was the lucky one. As you will recall, Agamemnon married Clytemnestra, Helen's sister. They had 3 children, Orestes, Iphigenia, and Electra. Well, on the way to Troy, the Greeks infuriated the goddess Artemis, who held back the winds at an island called Aulis. She demanded Agamemnon make a sacrifice if he ever wanted to get to Troy. What did he need to sacrifice? His daughter, Iphigenia. Sadly, Agamemnon was all too eager to get to Troy, and personally slit his daughter's throat wide open. But was that the end of Agamemnon's curse from the gods? Nope. When he got back from the 10 years at Troy, a torture in itself, he came home to find his wife Clytemnestra had shacked up with his cousin Odysseus, son of Thyestes. Well, actually he didn't really find out this so much as he had an axe planted in his head by Clytemnestra. Can you blame her? He killed their daughter. But before all of that, the Atridae gathered up every king who had made an oath and their armies, a force of 1,000 ships, all for one woman. But it wasn't easy getting them together. First off, Odysseus didn't want to go. He had never wanted Helen. He just swore an oath because he didn't want anyone to know he was really there for Penelope. When they came to get him, he tried to pretend he was crazy. It was probably a good call on his part to not want to go, as it took him 20 years to get back to his beloved Penelope. And then there was Achilles. As a student of mine once put it, Achilles, the Rambo of the gods. The son of Thetis and Peleus, whose marriage started this whole thing, Achilles was little more than a killing machine. As a child, his mother had dipped him in the river Styx, the river that bordered the underworld, and by doing this, made him invulnerable except on the part of his heel that she held him by. She then had him taught by the same mentors who taught Heracles. In the end, no warrior was ever as great as Achilles, but his mother knew that if he went to Troy, he would die. So when the Greeks came to get him for the war, because it was foretold that they could not win without Achilles, Thetis tried to hide him in the women's quarters on the island that he lived, but Odysseus saw through this deception and got Achilles out of hiding.